Hello everyone. Today we'll see the osteology of the ribs. Okay, so ribs are the elongated curved flat bones that posteriorly it articulates with the vertebrae. So you can see it forms the major part of the thoracic cavity, and posteriorly the ribs are articulating with the thoracic vertebrae. Anteriorly, except for the last two vertebrae, last two ribs, anteriorly it articulates with the lateral border of the sternum. Coming to the classification of the ribs, the upper 7 ribs, they articulate by their costal cartilages. They articulate directly with the lateral border of the sternum. Okay, so these ribs are called as true ribs. Okay, so the upper 7 ribs, they articulate with their costal cartilage with the lateral border of the sternum. That's why they are called as true ribs. 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th ribs, out of which the 11th and 12th ribs, they are the floating ribs. As you can see, there is just costal cartilage that is covering the tip, but that is not articulating with that of the sternum. So that's why the 11th and 12th ribs, they are called as false ribs and floating ribs. Coming to 8th, 9th and 10th ribs, they have their costal cartilage, but they are indirectly articulating with that of the sternum. That means the costal cartilage of 8th to 10th ribs, they join with the costal cartilage of the 9th rib. So you can see the costal cartilages of 7th to 10th ribs, it is forming a margin here, and this margin is called as costal margin. Okay, so this was the first classification depending upon the direct articulation or indirect articulation. So that is true and false ribs. Coming to typical and atypical rib. So when we see the ribs, if we have it has a common features that we cannot differentiate it from one another, they are called as typical ribs. For example, now 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. So 3rd to 9th ribs, they are called as typical ribs because they have common features which by means of which we cannot differentiate, difficult to differentiate from one another. First rib, second rib, 10th, 11th and 12th ribs. So 10th, 11th, 12th, first and second ribs. So they are considered to be atypical ribs because we can differentiate it from one another. Okay, so first let's see the feature of the typical rib. So you identify the side of the rib. The sternal end is somewhat larger and it has a depression. The vertebral end, it has got facets. I hope you can identify the facets. See, these are the facets. Now I'll tell you what this articulates with. So first identify the side. This is belonging to the left side. That's why I'm holding in the left hand. The sternal end. If I'm holding it in the other side, you can see the sternal end is coming backwards. So this is wrong. Okay. So this is the correct identification. So you can see this is the sternal end, this is the vertebral end, and one of the important feature is presence of the costal groove. So you can see there is a costal groove that is present close to the lower border. You can feel for the costal groove at the lower border. So if I am holding it like this, the costal groove comes upwards. So this is wrong. So the correct identification is this rib belongs to left side, having a sternal end directed anteriorly, the vertebral end directed posteriorly, and there is a costal groove that affects the lower border of the shaft of the rib. So coming to the parts of the typical rib, it has got a sternal end that is directed anteriorly. This sternal end shows a depression to which the corresponding costal cartilage is articulating here. This end is the vertebral end, and see the vertebral end clearly. You can see there are two facets. Okay, so there are two facets. This is the upper facet which is smaller. This is the larger facet that is bigger or large. large facet and the small facet, it is separated from each other by a ridge. So you can see a ridge here. Now coming to the articulation, this is the part of the head. Head is bearing a small upper facet and a large lower facet. So this large lower facet articulates with the facet of the corresponding vertebrae. That means if I am holding, this is the fourth rib, this lower large facet articulates with the body of the fourth vertebrae. Whereas this small upper facet, this articulates with the body of the upper vertebrae. Like for example, if this is the fourth rib, this small facet is articulating with the third vertebrae, body of the third vertebrae. I hope you are able to follow this. Head is having two facets, small facet and a large facet. This large facet articulate with the numerically corresponding same vertebrae. The upper facet is smaller and this articulates with the above vertebrae. So both are articulating with the facets that are present in the body of the vertebrae. Next part of the posterior end is the neck. So this particular region what I am holding in my fingers, which is flattened, directed posterolateral to that of the head, this is the neck. So this neck, it lies behind the transverse process of the vertebrae. So come to the skeletal, see the skeletal here. See, this part is the neck, this part is the neck, this is the transverse process of the vertebrae. So the neck is lying anterior to the transverse process of the vertebrae. The next part, what we can see here, this is the neck. Next to the neck is the tubercle. So you can see this part is the tubercle, which shows in the posterior part an elevation here. I hope you all can identify the elevation. This elevation is called as tubercle. This tubercle has two parts. There is a facet, a rounded facet in the medial side. Laterally, this is non-articular. This entire tubercle has a medial facet, and this medial facet articulates with the facet that is present along the transverse process of the corresponding vertebrae. This lateral part of the tubercle is non-articular, and this gets attached to the tip of the transverse process by means of a ligament, that is lateral costotransverse ligament. So let's identify in the skeleton once again. See here, this is the tubercle. Tubercle has got a facet and that facet articulates. So this is the transverse process which has got a facet. So you can see the facet here. You can see a facet along the transverse process of the vertebrae. So the facet of the tubercle which is present medially articulates with the facet that is present along the transverse process of corresponding same vertebrae. Whereas the lateral part of the tubercle is non-articular, so this part articulates with the tip of the transverse process of the corresponding same vertebrae by means of lateral costotransverse ligament. So these are the three parts belonging to the posterior end or the vertebral end. Let's just see the parts once again. So this part is called as head. This part is called as neck, and this part is the tubercle. Now coming to the shaft. Shaft is curved, flat, and it intervenes between the sternal end and the vertebral end. Always when you hold a rib, you do not hold it horizontal. It is not placed horizontal. It is rather placed like this, downwards, so that the sternal end is present slightly lower than the vertebral end. The shaft has got an upper border which is blunt and rounded. The lower border which is sharp, you can see this is the lower border, it is sharp. Upper border is rounded. This surface is called as the external surface. This surface is the internal surface, inner surface or internal surface. Okay, coming to the features along the external surface. Before that, you have to know what is angle of the rib. So you can see when I am holding this in the anatomical position like this, you can see that the shaft, it is lying posterolaterally. From there, it abruptly comes front. Okay, so this particular junction, you can see this particular junction is called as the angle of the rib, where at first the shaft is running posterolaterally, then abruptly it turns front. So this is angle which is considered to be the weakest part of the rib. Coming to the features along the external surface. External surface close to the sternal end, it presents a oblique ridge which I have marked there. So you can see I am marking once again. There is an oblique ridge close to the sternal end. So this oblique ridge, or otherwise called as anterior angle, this is demarcating the origin of external oblique muscle from that of the serratus anterior muscle. You remember the origin of serratus anterior muscle, which has got 8 digitations. That means serratus anterior muscle takes origin from the external surface behind this oblique ridge, or from the upper 8 ribs. What happens to the lower 8th, 9th and 10th rib is, anterior to this it gives origin to the external oblique, but behind this it gives origin to the latissimus dorsi. Is it understood? The external surface close to the sternal end has got an oblique ridge. Anterior to the oblique ridge it gives origin to external oblique. Posterior to this ridge it gives origin to the upper 8 digitations of serratus anterior. 8th rib onwards, the serratus anterior digitation is replaced by the latissimus dorsi. In the posterior part, you can see the shaft where it forms an angle, it is roughened, and this region gives origin to the thoracolumbar. It gives not origin, it gives attachment to the thoracolumbar fascia. Coming to the lower border of the rib, close to it, from the posterior end to the anterior end, it shows a groove, and this groove is called as costal groove. This costal groove has got 3 parts. This, where I marked it with the blue line, I am marking it again. So this is called as the upper lip. It has got a floor that I am marking with yellow there. This is yellow colored part, yellow colored chalk. What I am using is marking the floor. Then orange color mark is for the lower lip. So the costal groove, which affects the lower border of the rib, it has got three parts. The one which I marked with green is showing the upper lip. The one which I marked with yellow is showing the floor of the costal groove. The one which I marked with orange is showing the lower lip. So the green colored mark, what I have marked with what is marking the upper lip, it gives origin to the intercostalis intimus. And remember, this intercostalis intimus is present in the middle 2/3 of the typical intercostal space. Remember, the upper lip is giving origin to intercostalis intimus. The floor of the costal groove, it gives origin to the intercostalis internus. And the lower border or the lower lip of the costal groove is giving origin to intercostalis externus muscle. Now you all know that there is something called as neurovascular plane that is affecting, or it is present between the intercostalis intimus and intercostalis internus. Okay. Now coming to the upper border, which is blunt and rounded. So this receives the insertion of muscles of above intercostal space. Now this rounded border has got an outer lip, it has got an inner lip and the intermediate region. So this outer lip, which has marked with orange, so this is giving insertion to the intercostalis externus muscle of the above space. The intermediate region of the upper border is receiving the insertion of intercostalis internus of the above intercostal space, and the one which are marked with the yellow, yeah, this is representing the inner lip of the above inner lip, and this is giving insertion to intercostalis intimus muscle. Okay, so this is about the upper border. Coming to the inner surface, so this inner surface of the rib is covered by the costal pleura. Okay, so this is covered with the costal pleura. This is about the typical rib, that is from 3rd to 9th rib, it's considered to be the typical rib.